This is Brian Berry with ScanForce, and welcome into another of our continuing education webinars. Today, we're going to focus strictly on multi-bin. If you visited with us and seen any of our other webinars or watched some of the recordings of those before, you know that we talk about a lot of the features and functions within the ScanForce Warehouse Management System, WMS, that impact multi-bin. So we thought it would be a good idea to do one devoted strictly to multi-bin, so you could have a really good understanding of what that is, what it does, and how it can alter the way that your warehouse operates. And of course, we'll talk about some of those other things that it trickles into and how it affects some other functions within the system. So again, my name is Brian Berry, and we're going to dive right in. Let's first talk about what we're going to talk about. Let me bring up the agenda slide. So I'll do a really brief overview. I know that to many of you, we are a known entity, either existing Sage reseller partners or existing ScanForce customers are looking to augment. But for some of you first timers, maybe just finding out about us for the first time, so I'll give you a brief overview of who we are and what we do. Then I'm going to dive into the multi-bin functionality. The first thing we'll talk about is the visibility. That's one of the main things that people look for, no pun intended, when they're looking for multi-bin, is that visibility of things in more than one place. Then I'll talk about how it impacts both the receiving and the picking, shipping aspect of the warehouse. And then I'm going to talk about pallets. I know not all of you are into pallets. Not every warehouse runs at the pallet level. But for those of you that do, it is of paramount importance. And I didn't want to skimp on it or cheat you out of that. So I do have a short little section on pallets. And then we'll jump right in and talk about replenishments and then wrap things up with some Q&A at the very end. So there's a chat function in the system. Please send your questions in as we go. There's little questions and chats down at the bottom. So please send those in and we'll get those covered, okay? Moving on to the introduction. If you've been with me before, you've heard me say I don't read screens. We all went to kindergarten. You can read those. We're going to give you this as a recording after the fact if you've registered, or if you're viewing this on our YouTube channel. We thank you for listening in and joining that way. And you can pause this and read this to your heart's content. The big thing here is we've been around for a long time. Our staff continues to grow. Just in the last year, we've added a new marketing person, a new implementation person, a new programmer, a new development person, a new support person, and in the last couple of years, we added a salesperson. We continue to grow. We've been around for a long time. We're upwards of 10,000 users now across Sage. So we thank you very much for the support that you've given us over the years to help us get to those kind of numbers. Now, talk about what we do. WMS, barcoding, that's who we are at our core. We are a barcoding company. We help companies to automate their warehouse. The WMS, or warehouse management system, is sort of the crown jewel, if you will. We have three different functional versions. We call them Core, Select, and Premier. One of those, the Premier version, includes all the multi-bin stuff that we're going to be talking about today. And of course, label printing is a big part of it because being a barcode company, you've got to have something to scan. Not everybody's lucky enough to have things come into their facility already barcoded. They need to create those at receipt of goods or during a manufacturing step or at shipping. So we have labeling built in as well. We also handle manufacturing. No matter what module you're using in Sage, we interface with all of them so we can add that piece on. And last but not least, mobile sales, which is completely separate from the WMS product. It basically cuts the cord to Sage and allows you to enter quotes, sales orders, and such, being disconnected from a terminal in the office in Sage. It works great if you're at a trade show when you want to take orders, or if you have a will call counter where people want to walk up and place orders that way. So I would love to have a conversation with you about any and all of this. At the very end, I will have a contact slide, and I'm your guy for 100. So please just send a message in and we can talk about whatever your needs may be and how ScanForce can help you fix some of the problems that you're experiencing in your facility. Things that we feel like set us apart. Number one is speed. We did this thing called the Million Record Challenge some time ago. And we loaded up literally 1 million records and said, go find one of them, one discrete piece of data. And it returned that in less than 0.03 seconds, which even in computer terms is really screaming fast. Our screens are also very intuitive. We've been doing this over 20 years, so we know exactly how Sage wants the inventory information to flow back in, and that's the way our screens are designed. Also, I always say this as well, if there's one takeaway from this that I want you to really key on, it's the support side of things. We are the best of breed in Sage world when it comes to support. Our team here, that is job one. It's a cultural thing here. It's something that is from the top down. Everybody buys in. Our support, second to none. If you don't believe me, ask anybody in the Sage 100 world, and they'll back that up. I know. All right, enough of that. Let's get into the meat of it. Let's talk about multi-bin, some of the features and function. First of all, what the heck is multi-bin? Well, like the name says, it allows you to show things in multiple places. One of the giant gaping holes in Sage 100 that's always been there in Sage 100 inventory is the fact that you get one location code for every item code. It'll only allow you to show one place where things live. And that's just not overly realistic in the modern warehouse, where you might want to show stuff in different places. You've moved some things here, there, yonder. You haven't put things on the shelf where they belong. Where are they scattered around the facility? Maybe there's a perfectly good reason, the fact that they're all in one place. We just want to know that. That's what this multi-bin layer adds to Sage. And it does just that. It adds it to Sage. But rather than reading this whole slide, again, you can go back and pause it on this in the recording if you want. I think it'll make a lot more sense if you actually see it. So let me show you what inventory looks like without multi-bin first. This is the classic item inquiry screen right out of Sage. I'm looking at item 1901. It's my white widget, and I can see in my 000 warehouse, I've got 1,015 units. I've got some more coming in, some scheduled to go out, and I've got this many available. Okay? We're all used to seeing this, and that's great information. But where the heck are they? Where are the 887 that are available? Where's the 1,015 that we totally have on hand? Are they all still on the same shelf, but maybe some are available and some aren't? Have we moved the 128 that are committed on sales orders? Are they somewhere different than the rest of them? We just can't tell. Sage isn't allowed, is capable of telling us that information. That's where multi-bin comes in. When we add multi-bin as part of an implementation of our warehouse management system, this warehouse becomes dynamic. And if I click on it, I get a screen that looks like this. And I can still see the 1,015 units that I have on hand, but now I can see the quantity breakdown in every little nook and cranny, and here's where all those places are. Now, I want to spend a little bit of time on this screen, more so than on the others, because this is the meat and potatoes, folks. This is the visibility that I mentioned that people really are longing for to plug that hole in Sage 100 inventory. So let's break this down a little bit. I can see I've got 15 units right here sitting in a staging area over on my shipping dock. Okay, I'm getting ready to ship these 15 out. I've moved them out of my normal storage spot, and they're over by the shipping dock waiting to be loaded on a truck. I've also got 50 units on the receiving dock. They may have just come in this morning. Okay, I've received them, I own them, they're in the building, they're just not on that shelf with the rest of the inventory. Well, that's important to know because I've got 50 less on that shelf than maybe I thought from looking at that previous screen that said I had 1,015. Maybe I thought they were all together. This gives me the breakdown and shows me exactly where everything is. I've got 3 different picking locations here. This must be a really popular item if I need 3 places to stock it. I've got aisle A, aisle D, and aisle E, these unique locations. And by the way, your nomenclature, what you call locations, don't have to look like mine, okay? We're gonna set that up for you, with you, during the implementation phase of multi-bin. So if you've got an Excel spreadsheet of all your locations, we'll suck it into the system and load them all up for you. And you can have aisle 1, 2, 3 instead of aisle ABC like I do. But I've got these 3 picking locations, and I can see the unique quantities of each of them. I've also got 300 in an overstock or an overflow location. Now, I just have one called overstock. For a lot of our customers, it's the top shelf. If you have a racking system, the top shelf, or maybe the top 2 rows, that's overstock, and everything in the bottom 2 or 3 that are more like eye level, hand level picking, that's the picking locations. So down here where I've got receiving dock, I've got one location called receiving. You could call this door 1 or door 2, or maybe the one that's staged to go out is sitting over by door number 7, waiting for a truck to back in there. So you define what multi-bin will look like in your world, and it will be completely different from everybody else's. It's that flexible, okay? I've also got this other place up here. I got 25 units in a place called components for production. What the heck does that mean? Well, if you're a manufacturer, wouldn't you like to know that someone pulled 25 off that shelf where we normally store it and they moved it over to the production line? So I can see that I've got material there to feed the beast, okay? I don't have to slow down manufacturing because someone has already moved the material, the raw material components that I need to manufacturing. It's all about building in efficiencies. We don't want to slow down production. You want to keep those lines running at full capacity. If somebody has to go running back and forth looking for component inventory, they have to shut down the production line. That's just counterintuitive to everything that we think of about efficient warehousing. So we want to show that I've got 25 units sitting right there. It's a component ready for production, ready to go in and feed the beast, okay? Now, how do I get all of this stuff into these different places? Well, it starts at receiving. When I do a receipt, I may check in a truckload and I may have 20 different items or 50 different items or however many comes on the truck in your world. And they're sitting on the receiving dock. Well, they obviously live in different places in the warehouse. That's why we have all those different shelves with stickers on it, okay? So where are they supposed to go? Well, it's telling me I received this item 1901. These are orange widgets in this case. And right now they're sitting over here on the receiving dock, okay? And there are 4 of them there. Now I'm showing the total I have on hand. That's just informational, but there are 4 in this bin right now. And once I say I'm going to move all 4 on this quantity screen, I get this screen that says, okay, what's the to location? Where are you moving it to? Or what pallet are you putting it on? We'll get to pallets later. I'll save that. But if I'm just moving this to a location, I may want to say, hey, the primary location is over here on aisle A. So all the user has to do is be able to read. If I can read the screen, it says A100. That's like the floor position over there on aisle A, vertical rack 100. All I have to do is just take it over there and put it down. I scan that location. There'll be a sticker on that shelf, and I scan it into this field. And now I have instantly moved those 4 from my receiving dock to this A100 location, okay? And that word instant that I mentioned before, that wasn't an accident. It was very, very intentional. We have a setting in our system that 99% of the users turn on called instant bin transfers. What that means is, you know Sage to be a batch-based system, right? Everything goes into a batch. We do an admin process. They process the batch. Then it becomes live in Sage. Well, in this case, if I'm moving something to point A to point B, why do I need somebody to approve that? Okay, it's already happened. If I've moved it, it's there. I would want Sage to just show it. If that was a mistake, fine, I can move it back, but I don't want it to be in limbo, okay? So turning on instant bin transfers, as soon as I execute this transaction, it's instantly updated in Sage. Sage knows exactly where these 4 are. They've been added to the quantity on whatever shelf I put them on, okay? And by the way, I know this little button right here is cut off a little bit. This is because this is an emulator that I'm running on a PC to grab these images to show you what it would look like on the handheld. I blew them up proportionally much larger than normal to make it easier to see. And sometimes the rendering is a little off and it cuts off a button like that. I promise the real application on the handheld doesn't look like that. If it did, our developers would have a complete conniption fit until they fixed it. So this looks perfectly normal on the real screens, I promise, okay? So when we receive something, we can do this put away and I can put things in its place, all right? But there's more to it than just receiving one PO at a time, which is kind of the norm. Sometimes some of you may get multiple purchase orders on one delivery from a vendor, okay? Well, what do you do in that case? Well, we have an application that's an enhancement called waived receiving. To us, a wave is just a way of grouping transactions together. So what I can do is I can group maybe 5 POs together that are on this one truckload. Well, if it's a really popular item, I may include that item on every PO that I enter against that vendor. So if they ship me 5 POs on one load, I've got the same item that's on 5 different POs. If I'm doing this at the 1 PO at a time level, that's 5 different times I have to receive that same item. That's repeating steps. That's not inefficient. And imagine if the worker, the person doing the receiving, physically does the put away 5 unique times. That's 5 times they have to walk down that aisle A to put it in that slot, okay? Footsteps cost money. We want to cut down on footsteps. We could throw a little technology at that problem and it will handle that for us. Wave receiving groups them together. Now I can receive that item's quantity in totality across all 5 POs and I can do one put away. Now that worker's only walking to aisle A 1 time to put that item away or driving their forklift or however they get there. The point is, it's building in an efficiency, okay? Orders of magnitude, 1 trip is a lot more cost effective than 5. That's what wave receiving does, okay? Now, That's the receiving side. Let's switch gears now and talk about the picking, shipping side. So we've talked about getting things in and how it relates to multi-bin. Now let's talk about auto allocations and how we get things out the door. What is an auto allocation, Brian? So this is a feature that's built into multi-bin. Okay, it's just part of it. It comes with. It's not an extra piece. So auto allocations. When you hear that term, think reservation. When I enter a sales order and I've got, remember those 3 pick locations that I showed you on the multi-bin screen a few screens back? If I've got 3 picking locations, how do I know which is the best place to go? Okay, your workers that have been here for 10 years, 20 years, maybe they just kind of memorize the whole warehouse. They just kind of know where all the skeletons are buried, and they just kind of innately know where to go. Okay, but if you're trying to run a FIFO environment, first in, first out. By the way, when I ask people when I'm doing discovery calls and demos, how do you do it? 9 times out of 10, they say FIFO. So that's the example I'm going to use here. But bear in mind, we have many other methods other than FIFO. Okay, but I'll use FIFO for my example. One of those 3 locations, that's a picking location, has the oldest stuff. Now, somebody might remember what the oldest stuff is and where it is, but everybody in the warehouse doesn't, because they probably weren't the one that put it away. The guy that put it away might, but everybody else might be scratching their head, which is going to lead your pickers to pick the wrong thing. They're not going to pick the oldest stuff. Stuff's going to spoil. You're going to have spoilage. You're going to have waste. Or maybe it's an expiration date that's the issue. We have another setting that says, hey, don't worry about the stuff that I brought in longest ago, like FIFO. Let's get the stuff that's going to expire first out the door. That's another one of those settings. That's impossible for people to just memorize. And you don't want them to have to go dig through files for that information. Wouldn't it be great if on the screen it just said, hey, go here, do this, get this? That's exactly what auto allocation does. It reserves inventory in a specific place based on business rules that we help you set up that will then trickle down through the system. So it creates the reservation. Then the way that we communicate that information to the actual picker is what we call directed picking. Directed picking is where it pops up on the screen and it says, hey, go to this aisle, this rack, this shelf, this bin. I've reserved 10 units right there. Grab those. And they're going to scan a barcode at that shelf to make sure that we're taking it out of the right place. That way we keep Sage inventory accurate all the time as we go. Okay? If accuracy is a goal of yours, multi-bin is the biggest component that will help you increase that accuracy. We've already talked about multiple ways that we can increase efficiency. Okay, so directed picking and the auto allocations work in concert with one another to make sure that users are going to the right place to get the right thing. Okay, and while I'm talking about the guy that's been here for 10 years that knows where everything is, compare that to the efficiency of the worker you hired last week. Which one's more efficient? That's obvious. The guy that has everything memorized. How long is it going to take new guy to get up to speed? Maybe 10 years, depending on how complex your warehouse is and how fast things turn. Okay. What a wonderful world it would be if I could just look at the screen and it would tell the new guy exactly where to go, exactly what to do. Now, new guy is as efficient as old guy the day he walks in the building, because all he has to do is read the screen. ScanForce does all that number crunching for you, and it tells him exactly what to do. Okay. Now, the process I just described was kind of one PO, or excuse me, one sales order picking at the time. But just like receiving multiples at a time, we can receive multiple, or we can receive multiples at a time. We can also pick multiples at a time. Easy for me to say. We call that wave picking. A wave is just a way to group orders together, where it's receiving POs or picking sales orders. Same basic concept, just in reverse. We can group sales orders together, and it will tell us what bin we need to go to grab everything for those orders. But here's the kicker. It doesn't have to be for one customer. We have a lot of people that come to us and say, hey, look, we deliver on our own trucks. I've got a northern route. I've got a southeastern route. If I'm trying to load the southeastern truck for tomorrow, I want to pick all those items. I can waive all those orders on the southeastern truck that are due to be delivered tomorrow, and they all show up on one person's handheld. And if I've got the same item on multiple orders, I only have to go to that place one time. There's the efficiency. I go there once, I pick everything in totality, the total quantity, and then I take it, and then I can take it to a packing station where I can bust it up, and I can put some for this order and some for that order. That's where we do packaging in a second step. So we can break the pick and the pack into 2 separate steps. Okay, and all of this fits into multi-bin perfectly. It tells me exactly what bin to go to based on the allocation and the directed picking, and I don't waste any footsteps, okay? So this is how we can bring multiple orders together to pick them at one time. But what if I need to do the opposite? What if I have a giant order and I want to split it so I can have multiple people picking against the same order at the same time with no fear of interfering with one another, okay? What we do with split picking is we allow you to say, I've got, one product line I store in one area of the warehouse. So I can get a dash A and a dash B pick ticket. And if I'm working in one product line, I only see the line items on my handheld that are in my area of the warehouse. I pick those, somebody else does their part, and they come together in that secondary packaging step. How cool is that? Okay. Or maybe it's just a giant order and I say, you get the first 20 and I'll get the next 20 and somebody else will get the next 20. And then we'll all bring them together and we'll ship out, 60, 80, 100 lines. Okay. So split picking allows us to take one order and bust it apart. I'll give you a real world example. I got one customer, they manufacture giant pumps. And every time they ship a pump, they have to ship a certain amount of spare parts because things wear out. Okay. Well, there's a spare parts warehouse building on their campus, and then there's the storage building where they keep all the pumps that are new. Well, they use split picking, and they have a pick ticket that prints out in totally different buildings. I'm the spare parts guy. I go get all the spare parts, and I send them over to the shipping area. Somebody in the pump warehouse, they grab the pump or pumps, and they send it to the shipping area, and the two things come together, get married up, and go out the door under one sales order. Okay, so we can group orders together, we can split orders apart. We have many different options. My main job in life is to listen to you, the end user, tell me how you run your warehouse today, how you wish you could run it tomorrow, and help you decide which aspects and components of the ScanForce system would work best in your environment. Okay. Now, another one of those that I mentioned early on was the idea of pallet tracking. Now, for those of you that don't receive and ship on pallets, I'm going to give you a minute or two to go check an email, but keep me running in the background because I'll call you back in just a second. But those of you that do have people that run around on forklifts like this guy right here, this is paramount for you. This is an absolute game changer. Pallet tracking is an extension of multi-bin, because what is a pallet if not a place that we store things? I'm showing you two pallets in this picture right here. Pallet 101 on the top and 102 at the bottom, let's call them. Okay, what's on this pallet? Is it the same as this one? Maybe not. Okay, well, I don't want to have to cut the shrink wrap and go and digging through there to find out what's on it or to find the one thing that I need. I don't want to have to go and search through 10 pallets to find one case of something if I'm looking for a specific lot number or serial number. Wouldn't it be a cool world to live in if Sage just knew what was on each skid? That's exactly what pallet tracking does, and this is what it looks like. Okay. Going back to multi-bin, this is the same view that we saw before, but I've got a different item, number 1901 this time, and I've added a column called pallet. Now, I know not everybody ships in pallets. Some people ship in totes or bags or barrels or giant boxes called gaylords. Yes, that's a thing. You can look it up. But we call it pallet just generically because that's what the lion's share of people call it. So that's the term I'm going to use. So when I look down my list here in multi-bin, I can see I've got pallet ending in 102, 108, and 110. I've got 40 units on this one, and this pallet is sitting on a shelf, aisle A, right over there. Okay. If I want 40 of them, I can just go over there and grab this whole pallet. Okay. I've got 20 units sitting on pallet number 108, and they're sitting in a place called finished goods from production. Maybe I'm a manufacturer. I just made these things. They were born into my warehouse, and they're sitting in the finished goods area of my production zone. Or maybe you have 5 production lines. We can call it finished goods 1 through finished goods 5, and I'll know exactly where they are. So you can get as granular with these multi-bin definitions or as generic as you wish. Okay. And then I've got 12 units sitting on pallet number 110 over in the ship staging area, waiting to go out the door. They're on a sales order. They're going to go out the door. The main difference between a pallet like 102, 108, or 110 and a bin location like A120 is A120 will be here tomorrow. This pallet may not be. Okay. In fact, in the case of pallet 110, it's in the shipping area. It's probably not going to be here tomorrow. Okay. But for instance, let me ask you this question. If you do deal with pallets, do you always put one product on a pallet, or might you mix them? A lot of our customers say it depends. When we bring things in from our vendors, they generally put one thing on a pallet, and it's all the same thing. That's fine. We could do that. But then they tell me when they ship things out on a sales order, they might put one of these, two of these, and 10 of those on a pallet and shrink wrap it. So now I've got multiple things on a pallet. Well, we can do that too. And it looks like this. If I click on pallet number 102 on this screen, I'm going to get another window that pops up here for pallet 102. And I can see in addition to the 40 orange widgets, I've got 10 gray widgets. So I can drill down into that. What we're doing here, folks, is we're adding layers to Sage inventory. Sage gives me company and warehouse out of the box. Every company can have multiple warehouses. Then once we get to the warehouse, we stop. Sage says there's 1,025 under the roof, and that's where it stops. So that's when we add ScanForce Multi-Bin, and I get this view, and I can see all these nooks and crannies and all the quantities that add up to 1,025. So we add the bin level view. Then for those of you that need to, we can add the pallet level view and get down to this kind of information right here. I can see exactly where my pallets are and exactly what's on them. And the cool thing about pallet number 110 that's in the shipping area, it's got 12 of these. It may have 50 different items on there too. I don't know how big these things are, but we have a bunch of different stuff on the shrink wrap. But when I go to ship it, you know what I have to do? Scan the barcode for pallet number 110. That's it. Sage knows what's on it. If I just scan that pallet, boom, the whole thing ships. That's efficiency. Imagine not having to deal with every part and piece. One time, build a pallet, then I can move it, can ship it, I can do whatever I need to with one barcode scan. That's efficiency. Okay. All right, everybody that wasn't talking about pallets, come on back in. I got one other topic I want to discuss with you before we wrap up, and that's bin replenishments. Okay, so the worst time to figure out you don't have something in a pick bin is when you've got a truck sitting at the dock and you've got a guy picking stuff trying to load it. Okay, so when's the most common time when people figure out that we don't have enough stuff in the picking? Well, that's when there's a truck there and somebody's trying to go pick it, right? Stop me if you've heard this one. So that's inefficient. That means I've got to stop picking. I've got to go to a forklift. I got to get a pallet from up high, bring it down. I got to break it down. I got to reload the pick. That's just a pain. It bogs down the process. It slows the warehouse down. Everything we do is about accuracy and efficiency and timeliness. So wouldn't it be a cool world to live in where a piece of paper just spit out and it said, hey, this E510 location, we're down to 20 units. The minimum is supposed to be 100. So somebody needs to go to the overstock and grab some more and repopulate this bin. So you can set minimum and max levels in the bin and get reminded whenever we take it down below its minimum. Okay? It's a great thing to do on second shift or for the new person. It's a great way for them to learn. Hey, you're the replenishment person. Here's your report. Go do it. Okay. And it's going to say, go to this overstock location, get X number of units, and repopulate E510. Okay. So the system takes the guesswork out of it. Okay. And allows you to concentrate on the things that are important, like making sure your customers are happy. And if your inventory levels are accurate and you're able to ship things in an efficient, timely manner, that keeps happy customers. And that's really what this is all about, is keeping customers happy by making sure the warehouse runs as efficient, as accurately, and as timely as possible. And by the way, did I mention, if you want to, the whole thing can be completely paperless because we give you all the data on the handheld. Again, it tells the user exactly where to go, exactly what to do. New person, just as efficient as a person that's been around for a long time. Okay? All right, we've about reached our time. I do want to say thank you to everyone for coming. We will have a Q&A session at the end, but if you have to drop off because of time, I understand, want to be respectful of that. We will provide a recorded version of this. You can always visit our YouTube channel. Just go to YouTube, search ScanForce. You'll find a plethora of videos on many, many topics that include multi-bin, manufacturing, and how we add on these parts and pieces like the waves and the splits and all that stuff. It's all documented out there. So again, thank you for joining us. And if you'll contact the phone or the info there, that comes directly to me. I would love to have a personal one-on-one conversation with you, talk about your warehouse, what your problems are, what your needs are, and which elements, which components with ScanForce can help fill that gap for you. Okay. All right. Woody, we're ready for Q&A. Can you look at the chat and the questions and tell me what sort of questions people have been asking as I've been going through this?
All right, lots of interest here. Let's go to Mac has a question about where is the option to set instant bin transfers on or off, or is it automatically on?
So it may not be, okay? So I'm assuming that means that you're existing customer of ours. Thank you very much for your business. Please ping an email to support@scanforce.com or give us a call, and anybody there can give you that information. They'll do it for you. They'll get you settled right away. That's a quick and easy thing.
Is wave receiving extra?
Yes, wave receiving is an enhancement. So the base system comes with the ability to do transactions one at a time, as you would expect. I enter a PO number, it gives me a list of items and quantities, I receive those. Wave receiving is an enhancement, it's an add-on because, again, not everybody needs or wants to do that. So in order to keep costs in control, we don't force everybody to pay for all the features. So the base system is what it is, and then we can add on sort of a la carte just the things that you need. That way you only pay for the stuff that you need.
When getting reminded about bin replenishments, where does that information go to? Who receives the reminder that it is low?
So it's actually a report. It's a report that you would run. And what a lot of people do is they'll run it at the end of first shift and hand it to second shift. Or they run it on a Monday morning to make sure that they're stocked for the week. Some people run it every day. Some people run it multiple times a day, depending on their volume and the flow through their warehouse. So it is a report that you must run, but it gives you the ability to break things down by multiple criteria, okay? And if you're an existing customer that's asking that, which I assume you are because you're asking, again, ping support and ask somebody, and they can jump on and show you exactly how that works.
How does direct picking look on the scanner?
Directed picking on the scanner, it's actually going to say, here's the bin that it's going to give you the item code in the description first, and then it's going to give you the bin where the auto allocation has said is the best place to pick that from based on your business rules. So it gives you the item, the description, and the bin location along with the quantity. And then you would go and scan the bin, scan the item, and enter the quantity to verify that everything is being picked correctly. So it's going to be right there on the screen underneath the description. Be happy to show that to you.
On directed picking, can you have items and product lines be picked first? Example, a heavy bulky item first over a light or fragile item.
Excellent. So this is actually something that I should have mentioned when I was talking about the pallet stuff. So we have a couple of ways to do this. It's included if you have our pallet tracking enhancement. Okay, so if you have that pallet tracking piece, this is included. It's also available as a standalone if you don't need to do pallets for full time, but it's called pick to pallet. Okay, the example I always use is when I go to the grocery store, I might buy bread and I might buy canned goods. The order in which they get packaged in the bag is crucial because if I come home and it's done incorrectly, guess who gets sent back to the grocery store? So wouldn't it be nice if the system said, hey, make sure the canned goods go on the bottom, the bread goes on the top? It's exactly the way pick to pallet works. It will tell you and it will direct the users to pick items in an order, in a sequence, that the big bulky things go on first and the small, lighter, dainty, fragile things can go in later. That's exactly what it does.
For wave receiving, can you combine vendors into one receipt?
Yes, absolutely.
Can you, that's pretty much it on the questions.
Okay, so bear in mind, we have 3 different functional versions of our WMS. There's 3 different editions or versions or packages, call it what you will, okay? One of those includes multi-bin. The other 2 are non-multi-bin, and they just have different levels of functionality depending on things that you do in your warehouse. And I always say, it really has nothing to do with the size of your organization. We have small companies that use our most basic package because it meets all their needs, and we have larger companies, or excuse me, smaller companies that use our more higher end package because there's a lot of built-in efficiencies there that allow them to do a lot with a few number of people, okay? So again, my main job is to help you interpret what your needs are, what are the problems that you're having, and how do we deploy various aspects of ScanForce to solve those problems. When you call me, I'm going to go through a Q&A with you. We'll figure all that out, and then I'll be able to present a live demo for you, showing you all this stuff in motion, how it will work in your facility. All right, if that's the end of our Q&A, I will go ahead and say good day to everyone. Again, you have the contact info on your screen. Please reach out to us. Again, I head up the 100 team here. My name is Brian Berry. Please reach out to us. Call the number, ask for Brian. I'm the only one here. I'm not hard to find. Or send an email to info. That will come to me as well. Would love to have that one-on-one conversation with you. Thanks again, everyone. Goodbye now.